What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to try to knock out episode 2 of Ruben's Laurel from the YouTube channel Juiceboxforyou. If you guys haven't gone to check out that channel yet, I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite channels on YouTube. Well, it is my favorite channel on YouTube, so go check it out. Sorry for the delay in between videos. I was in the process of relocating my office. So now we are in a new location and I can get back to work. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we are going to continue with the front bumper. I believe that is where we left off in the last video. So we're just going to turn off a couple of the shapes a couple of the big shapes so we can see where we want to continue on. And let's start with the parking lights on the front bumper here. So using the pen tool and continuing on the front bumper layer, we're just going to go ahead and draw a rough shape for the base of this parking light. And I'm using the pen tool now, but I'll show you in a minute why that didn't work for me. And I like to show you guys the mistakes if possible. I thought there was a little more perspective on this shape. So I actually want to create a new layer, and we're going to call this parking lights. Since these are going to take up several shapes on their own, we'll just have these guys sit on top or above the front bumper layer. So let's make sure that's the shape we just drew. That's good. Okay, now I think now that I've gone through this, there's going to be an easier way to do this. It's a pretty generic shape. So staying on the parking lights layer, we're going to come down and grab our rounded rectangle tool. And then this way we can just click and drag, and then bam, we have that shape already without having to draw all those those anchor points with the pen tool. So now I can just, copy and paste the same shape, and using the eyedropper tool, go through and just kind of get a rough idea of the color that I want by sampling the color in the photograph, and then putting all three of those shapes back together. And that's starting to look like a rough shape of the parking light. So right now it looks a little recessed in. So I want to adjust some of the colors there using the color dialog box. And I know, yes, I'm still working in CMYK right now, but we soon switch over to RGB. But as I zoomed out, the orange or the amber on that light looked rather dull, and I just wanted it to stand out a little bit more. So even though I sampled it with the eyedropper tool, you can always go back and adjust it. So for the shadow that sits on top of the amber light, I'm going to use a gradient here. So what I'm doing is I'm dragging the gradient tool over this shape that's selected to get a little bit of a highlight where that lighter gray line is up to the top there. And then we'll use the transparency dialog box to change that blending mode to multiply. And we're going to set an opacity of about 80 to 90% on that. Let's drop that back down. So now we can take that whole shape, real easy, option click and drag if you're on a Mac, and just kind of adjust these shapes so that they fit the new area where they live. So it's a little bit bigger, and we can just kind of make some minor adjustments since we already did the hard work on the other one, and it looks pretty much the same. So just moving things around, making sure you're kind of getting things lined up. And that was super simple, super easy. And now the parking lights are done. Nice to have them on their own layer though, so you can just kind of toggle them on and off. So now I've turned off some of the background there and just want to make sure I have enough of a shadow and we should be good. So a couple more highlights going on the front bumper here that are going to be very similar to the other highlights that we drew earlier. So making sure that we're back on that front bumper layer, using the eyedropper tool to pick up the same properties from those other shapes. That way you're not trying to, if you're coming back at this drawing a day or two later, you're not like, what were those settings again? Can't really remember. That's the beauty of the eyedropper tools, that you can just select what you want it to look like based off of if you got it right the first time. So, all right. So without further ado, let's try to get a few more details on this car because it is very, very detail oriented. So the hood here for me was pretty tricky. There's a lot of reflections going on, also with the livery going on, and it's not just black. There's a lot of reflections, so you're going to be looking at blues and stuff here too. So let's draw a shape to make a highlight, and we are going to drag that up, or we just did drag that up to our shading layer, so it's not on our black layer. And again, this is these are also gradients here, and they are, not fully opaque. They, one side of the gradient I have set to a transparency of 0, and then I'm just using my gradient tool to kind of just drag and see different angles of the gradient to see what kind of looks the most natural, the most realistic. And it doesn't always have to be exact to the photo here. This is where your creativity really kind of comes into play, and you can say, what I see in the photo doesn't translate really well over to the illustration. So that's your opportunity to use your creative freedom and use that gradient dial or that gradient tool to drag that gradient in the direction that you'd like it seen. So moving on, we're going to do a little bit of window trim here. Again, using, that copy and paste feature because you're essentially using the same shape, and going in and using the direct selection tool to just tweak it a little bit. That way you're not spending all this time redrawing two shapes that are extremely similar. You can just draw it once, copy it, and use the direct selection tool to tweak it to make it just slightly different. Okay, so now let's start drawing the interior. And again, this rough shape that I just drew in the navy on the windows layer, we're going to actually move up to another new layer, and we're going to drag that down under the black layer. So see how I drew a real rough shape, but by having it on its own layer and then dragging it underneath other layers to hide it, I don't have to have those anchor points in exact spots. It's a little cheat, but not really. You're just utilizing all of your layers. So that way you're not concentrating on making this perfect shape. You just basically need to fill a void, and then you can hide the imperfections underneath other layers. So this was something I forgot to screen record earlier. It was this layer here, which is called blue on black. And it was a filter that I used in Photoshop, and then I basically traced off of the filter to get those shapes. And I apologize for not screen recording that earlier, but unfortunately that's the nature of the beast, doing a drawing like this and then coming back months later to essentially make a tutorial out of it. When I first drew this and did a screen recording, I had no intentions of making a tutorial. It was basically to do like speed art rounds. So I started recording my my drawings, screen time, just to do like a quick speed art. So sometimes you win some, you lose some. So just wrapping up this parking light here, we're keeping it on its own little layer and making sure that we're using really bright colors using that same trick that we do with the windows to add a little bit of a light reflection on the top. And then now we're going to get back to the interior. So we're going to start a new layer, interior 2, because interior 1 were those two like really rough shapes that encompass just the kind of black. And so now we're going to kind of start over and see if I can't do anything a little different here. So this is where we're going to add the details. So right now we're working on drawing a couple of these shapes of the interior trim, the molding that is picking up on some of that heavy sunset light that this car is parked on a track in the sunset. So again, I've drawn some of these already, and we're just going to turn on these layers. And I actually had an Instagram follower reach out to me and let me know that the roll bar on, since there's no B-pillar in a Laurel, the roll cage there actually sits behind another piece, and I actually have that out of order. So props to the Instagram follower for calling that out. I always appreciate constructive criticism. I think he was a little nervous to say, hey, you made a mistake. But even though it's technically a mistake, I don't look at it as a mistake. Constructive criticism is the only way you learn. And on like I said, a car that is as detailed as this one, sometimes things like that get missed. So shout out to helping me out there. Although I'm not going to change the illustration. It's pretty much set in stone. So there we were just using our Pathfinder dialog box, using the minus front option to cut out some of those areas where the windows were and not just have shapes sitting on top of each other. So using that minus front, it's just one shape at the end of the day. So since the interior is so dark, we are just drawing a couple more shapes to hint at this is the steering wheel, this is where the dashboard is. I'm not going to concentrate on making sure everything's perfect. See here, you back out, it's really starting to look like a car. You're getting the steering wheel, you're getting the passenger seat. So now let's fill in that area where we're looking through the windows. And that's looking pretty good. A couple more things on the interior to draw here, like the other part of the roll cage and the driver's seat. And again, I'm not going to draw Recaro. We're just going to hint that there's a seat there. All right, great. Now zooming out, that's looking pretty good. Other than the slight mistake with the roll cage, let's get started on the windshield banner. So this was one where I used the eyedropper tool also to pick up a color, and it looked a little green, so I changed that to yellow. Now, sometimes when I'm working with actual letter forms, I will get out the type tool and actually type what I want, and then try to add some different type treatment to get it looking right. And I will show you that later when we're working on some of these logos for the livery. But in this instance, it didn't work out. So we are just going to go ahead and draw each character using our pen tool. Making sure all of those are filled in. And now we have the gap bill window banner done. And that's looking pretty good. We've got our shadow layer turned back on. So now all we really have left is the headlights, which are going to be tricky. And I am going to warn you guys, I also forgot to screen record that. Or if I did, I lost the footage. So I will make sure that I go over that with you. I'll at least tell you how I did it. Because I did cheat a little bit on doing the headlights since they were rather complicated. I did not cheat on the wheels though. The wheels are going to be a really enjoyable part of this illustration to watch, and we will also cover that next time. Also, livery's pretty much the only thing that's left besides the wheels and the headlights, and then we will have this illustration wrapped up. So again, I really do appreciate everybody's patience with me during this time. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I am getting ready to start a family. I've started a new job, and I've been pretty much rearranging my entire house, including my office, to get ready for the new addition to the family. So I appreciate your patience. I cannot wait until the new addition to the family comes and I can get back to not only illustrating, but getting back to these tutorials, because I really enjoy speaking with all of my fans that reach out to me and make requests, and it's just been a really fun experience. So again, if you've been following along with this channel for a while now, mad props to the OGs of watching the channel, and stay tuned on the Instagram. I've got a couple cars lined up that I'm eager to draw, so new illustrations will be coming out shortly. So as always, guys, thanks for watching and hitting that like button. If you're interested in more Adobe Illustrator CC tutorials and other car-related nonsense, consider subscribing and hitting that bell. Also, be sure to check out my Instagram page, which is linked below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace!